Hey, good evening, everyone. Going to go ahead and get started. Good to see you all on a beautiful Monday night. And thank you for last week. I know we had a late change. My wife was visiting family in Memphis. My youngest daughter ended up catching the flu, and I was a Mr. Mom last week. So Slayton was able to come in and teach, so thank you, Slayton, for being able to do that. But what we want to do is first jump off into our table groups and look at the. Hold up higher. See, there's a transmitter at the bottom of these microphones. If you put your hand at the bottom, see, it's all kinds of stuff you're learning about ministry. So make sure you don't hold the bottom. And Andrew, who works our student ministry, reminded me of it. Uh, but we had a homework assignment of chapters 5 through 8 of spiritual leadership. I hope you like this. I went through this when I was in college, and just going back through it now, I'm gaining so many new insights. So go ahead and get with your table and just discuss what were some of the highlights from chapters 5 through 8. We are going to take 4 minutes, get some group discussion, and jump in because we got a lot we want to cover tonight. right, if I can get your attention back this way. So, spiritual leadership, chapters 5 through 8. What were some of the things that resonated with you all? Yes, ma'am.
I was telling Ashley that something that resonated with me, or not resonated, but was just kind of conflicting through my read. Is that it started out like Jesus didn't pick the best of the best, so good on you, he could use you. But then once it started detailing all the things that we need to look out for, there's stuff like, well, maybe I can't be a leader. So it kind of like flip flopped through the whole read. So at this point, I'm not sure anymore. That was my takeaway. I'm not sure anymore.
Did anybody else feel that way? And I think because when I read through it, it was more highlighting. It's just it's character. So when you think about your competencies, you can learn competencies, how to do a task. You can learn a culture of a place, but competency, who you are when no one's looking, what kind of character you have, that stuff's got to be constant because we have and we talked about it before. There's an unbelievable amount of damage we can do upon a church if we fail morally, if we step out of line. And so I understand that there is a pressure. In the Bible, James 3:1 says, "Hey, we shouldn't all become teachers because teachers are judged more strictly, and sometimes that's unfair, but that's the reality of it. But make sure your character is right because you will make mistakes. You might lose your temper in leader, or you will in leadership, or you may say something you wish you could have back. But if your character is right, meaning who you are at home is the same as who you are in public, I think you'll be okay. But there probably should be a little bit of fear with stepping into leadership because it is a heavy mantle that we carry. So I think your thought is actually healthy to say like, hey, I don't know if I can do this because what Second Corinthians 9, we boast in our what? We boast in our weaknesses because when we're weak, then we're strong. So we delight in our weaknesses so Christ's power may rest upon us. So for you say, hey, I don't know if I can do it, that's good because you can't. But Christ in you, yeah, it's good. Somebody had their hands raised. Tim, Chris, pass it back to Tim.
Hi. One thing that stood out to me was in chapter 6, social qualifications. That first paragraph, it says, with respect to relationships with the church, within the church, the leader is to be above reproach. Detractors should not have a wrong to stand on. If a charge is preferred against him, it fails because of it fails because his life affords no grounds for reproach or indictment of wrongdoing. His adversary finds no opening for a smear campaign, rumor mongering, or gossip. And that last line, when I read that, I had like immediately wrote down that his fruit will fight battles for him in his absence. I have no idea where I heard that or where I got it from, but um, when I read that his adversary finds no openings for smear campaign, rumor mongering, or gossip, is when people basically talk about you behind your back. There's always going to be someone that steps up and says, no, not him, no, not her, because their fruit is going to fight battles for them in their absence.
Yeah, I had a similar. Oh wow, I had a similar reaction to. I forget who what was in the front who spoke. Reading through all the different qualifications, all the things, and my reaction as I read was similar. And then I got kind of spiritually chastised in page 55 when it says, "When God calls us, we cannot refuse from a sense of inadequacy. Nobody is worthy of such trust." When Moses tried that excuse, God became angry in Exodus 4:14. Let us not pass the buck of leadership because we think ourselves incapable. What I kept getting as I went through it was that leadership is less of a perk and is more as a responsibility, of a heavy burden, but like a good heavy burden. It's over there.
One of the things that really stood out to me were the moral qualifications. Because when you think about that, when you think of First Kings, Second Kings, Judges, their immorality caused a lot of them to sin. And their sin caused other people to sin. So being more moral as a leader, it stood out to me a little bit more than the other ones because it seems like it's the beginning, it's the root that can really cause destruction. And as we read in the Bible, it did cause destruction, immorality. So that's my view.
I have another mic up here. I don't know why I'm not using that one. Well, I hope that you're challenged and encouraged to know that, like Connor said, hey, God uses broken people, but we accept the weight not because it's a something where we want to be in charge, but gosh, we just want to honor the Lord and we want to serve Him. So continue to lean into it. We're going to finish up. I think the next we're going to do 8 through 12 this next week. Just as good reading. I love how it's so saturated in Scripture. It helps us because a lot of times Christian leadership books they can be very corporate, you know. But if you read through the New Testament, when Paul writes to Timothy about leading his church, it's so much. It's character driven. Are you able to teach? Are you above reproach? Do you handle your own household well? So I think it's a good reminder. So well, thanks for reading that. We're going to go ahead and jump in. Cairo's going to work the clicker because I've misplaced the clicker. Have a couple of tools that we want to share with you today. The first we want to give you, it's actually one that I meant to share with you whenever we were going to go over the support challenge matrix, but then also the leadership square. Both two of my favorite tools in leadership. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but the support challenge. I think that there's this one small tool. Throw that up there, Cairo. It's almost it's self-explanatory, but I think leaders sometimes miss it. So whenever we think that we want to encourage someone or we want to challenge someone, how we do that makes a difference. And you can just see all the mediums that we can talk to people. So, like for example, if Andrew, let's say Andrew right here in the front row, if Andrew helped me out with something and I thought he did a good job, and I slid into his DMs and said, "Hey, Andrew, great job, thanks for your help," that would be kind of weird. Be like, "Oh, well, thank you, Matt, for doing that." That has much less impact than a phone call, right? And then a phone call has much less impact than in person. So I think this is a good reminder because I know for me as a leader, sometimes the fastest thing to do is to shoot somebody a text, right? But text oftentimes could come across flat. Sometimes that's the right thing to do to send somebody a quick text, hey, thanks for your help with this. But if we want something to carry more weight, it's a phone call, or more importantly, it's an in-person thing. Now, sometimes as a leader, you're going to be challenged for time, and you're not going to have the time to meet with every single person. But all these things are a multiplier. If you want to continue to have influence on someone, and you needed to multiply, do something where it's a phone call or in person. I don't know if many people do a video chat one-on-one. You know, that may be you. So maybe it's a simple FaceTime, but that carries more weight. Does that make sense? Because it communicates, hey, you're special to me. I'm giving you time. Chris.
I have found as being in leadership, one thing that's missing up there that's incredibly important and impactful is a handwritten note.
I love it.
And I would even put it right above in person almost. It has that much effect, and people really appreciate it.
That's so true. Because it's almost like it's a throwback. because I know Pastor Ed does that some. He'll write letters to people, and hey, it'd be a lot easier if you just copied and paste and had your admin send it out. But a handwritten note carries a lot of weight. So that's a great reminder. Is there any other one that maybe we're missing? Voice memo. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Yes. That very true. Okay. Hey, Chris, thank you for that. Vanessa, thank you for that as well. So what I want to do now is go ahead and move on to the next thing, because here's the reality. The church today, we need more confident leaders. There's a leadership vacuum in a lot of churches. We all know this. A lot of churches are built on the stage. The leader, the main leader, has all the authority, but there sometimes churches don't do a good job of trickling down and develop strong leaders within their congregation. So we know we need to value leadership. We know we need to value apprenticeship, but how often so many churches forsake it can be discouraging. So what I want to do now is to start with what does it mean to build an invincible team. We're going to start with that, and this will actually lead us into how can we practically develop and disciple other people. So Carol, if you put this up here, all these are giant tools. I know that you guys have a giant membership with your MTI class, but we get so much of our Giant is the leadership platform we use as a staff. And so we use this as our staff with my one-on-ones I'll have with people. I will use the Giant platform. But this first tool is simply now Giant is out of London. You can tell by the way they spelled maximizing. So just wanted to highlight that. But there are 5 key components on building an invincible team. So think about the team that you lead, and it may be a volunteer team, it may be a small group, but if you have these 5 things, they'll build upon each other and make your team strong. So the first one is at the very top is communication. Everything rises and falls on communication. Are you clear? Do people understand their roles? Do people understand their objectives? And communication simply builds trust. It builds relationships. So you start with communication. And so if you have your communication down well, for a leader, that means do you have one-on-one meetings with the people that you lead or the people that you help serve? So it starts with communication, and communication leads to relationships. Relationships are simply, do you have a connection with the people that you're around, the people on your team? So it's a lot like the support challenge matrix we looked at a couple of weeks ago. Do people on your team feel seen? Do they feel heard? Do they feel important, or do they feel like they're just a cog in the machine? And if they feel like in a cog in the machine, relationship is going to be low. But communication leads to relationships, and relationships lead to trust, which leads to alignment. Now, alignment is simply, do we know the objective? Do we know where we're going? Are we all pulling in the same direction? In ministry, I've seen alignment get off target a lot because ministry just goes really fast and we don't take time to make sure that everyone knows the objective. But alignment, it's just being very practical. It saves time, it saves resources, it keeps people from getting hurt, because how many times have we seen it in leadership and ministry? If someone doesn't know what's going on, they ended up kind of floundering away. But alignment means that people know what they're doing, when they're doing it, and where they're going. The next one is simply execution. Communication, relationships, and alignments leads to communication, meaning we have the ability to deliver on what we've been called to do. So for those of you that are helping serve with teams at campuses, so it's more than just having great worship services at a church, but is the kids area set up well? Is the parking team ready to go? Is the next steps, are they fully stocked? So there has to be execution, And then lastly is just simply capacity. And capacity is just the ability to accomplish your task. Now, the reason that it starts in the order with communication and you see how the boundaries are kind of like arrows is because they all feed one into another. And it's like a flywheel that once this machine gets going, so once again, communication is solid, relationships are formed, trust is being built, there's alignment, execution, and capacity. But guess what happens when the capacity of a team is raised? Communication gets better. Communication gets better. Well, gosh, relationships now go into a whole other level, and so it builds and it feeds off one another. Now, one of the questions that we often will ask: think about your personality. Which one of these is the most important to you, and which is the one that you most commonly overlook? So for me and my wiring as a guardian pioneer, sometimes I can jump right to alignment, execution, and capacity, right? Because I think, hey, we don't have to worry about being buddies. We're all here to serve Jesus. Let's just get the job done, right? Anybody else feel that way at all? Okay, some of you. So just go ahead and shout out. Which one of these do you feel like is the most important to you? Relationships. So relationships and communication. Brother Shane, what is it for you? Mm-hmm. Well, and in your job where oftentimes you'll carry a gun, you got to make sure that everybody's on the same page, right? Yeah, because people get hurt in your line of work. Okay, so communication and relationships, very much so. Now, which one of these is the one that you'll often overlook? What is it? Why capacity? Right. Yeah, that's true. What else? Who else? Mm-hmm. 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 That's good. Anyone else? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, one thing I'll challenge you guys in is if you lead a team, have the people that work for you or serve with you have an honest assessment. You see in the middle there's a percentage. It's a lot like we did the peace index. We have to measure our effectiveness or else we won't get better. So what you can do, there's actually the Giant has a tool that people can actually take an assessment tool, but you can talk to your team and say, hey, if you had to rank ourselves out of 100, what do you think our communication is? And then you take all five, you divide it by five, and you get your average. Research has shown that most teams operate at about a 58%. And all that's to say that means that there's a lot left on the table. There's a lot. Think about it. We can do a much better ministry to people if leaders got better. Now it may be hard. So for example, if you're leading a group, say, hey, let's have honest moment. Let's kind of grade the effectiveness of our team. It may hurt, right? If they say, hey, Adrian, I mean, your communication, I think you're probably like a 4 out of 100 or whatever it may be. It may not feel good. However, it allows you to know, and this is what we'll do with our teams, whatever your lowest one is, spend energy on that. Because let's say that if they're all ranked and maybe you get into the 60s and 70s on a bunch of them, we can get overwhelmed like, there's so much I need to work on. Find whatever the one you're lowest on and put energy on that. And I will guarantee you there will be a multiplying effect because as you grow in that one, the others will get better because they'll feed into each other. So, for example, if somebody's struggling with communication, hey, learn the communication code, which, by the way, Pastor Ed and Stephanie will be here next week teaching on the communication code. And so it's a great tool to help. If someone on your team is struggling with relationships, hey, Giant's a great tool with relationships. The 5 gears is a good tool. With alignment, we do this a lot with some of our younger leaders. Is making sure they know that they have like a job description. That do you have, what's being asked of you. If someone's struggling with execution, hey, let's look how you spend your time. So I'll just say there's tools within all of these that can help you. It's just a matter of us slowing down as leaders and say, hey, we want to actually get better. Let's measure our effectiveness, and then we can move forward. But that's a tool. And Kyra, I think we can probably put this on. I know a lot of you guys took pictures, but we can put this on the what's the phrase? The word I'm looking for? Portal. That's it. I think Sarah probably has already uploaded it. But let's move to this next thing, because the hardest thing in leadership is learning how to delegate and to delegate effectively. Now, how many in here say, "Hey, I think I'm really good at delegation"? Man, you guys have nailed it. So I will ask you guys some questions. But when we talk about delegation, there are here's a tool that I think has been very meaningful to me. When I first got into ministry, I had a little bit of, and I'm putting quotes, success, because I performed well, meaning that I put on good student ministry worship services and camps, and I did things that provided a good experience for the families that I served. So my performance was admirable. I was getting pats on the back, and I was doing a good job. But when I got more opportunity and I moved into a new role, I still tried to operate like, hey, I've got to perform, and if I perform well, the ministry will grow just like it used to grow. But what you'll find out, and you talked about capacity, if you don't scale your leadership and it all falls on you, your ministry will actually suffer. And so where I was good at performing my task, I was not good at developing others to do the task. So if you think about Ephesians 4, that we're to equip who for the work of the ministry? So at church leadership, we're supposed to spend our time equipping the saints for the work of the ministry. And so this is a tool to simply to ask, hey, how am I performing in my role? But the more important question, how are we at leading performers? Because oftentimes people will be promoted to their level of incompetence. I don't know if that means a lot, but what I mean by that is people, if you do get a job, you'll get more responsibility until all of a sudden, hey, I'm not good at my job anymore. So I want to brag on Adrian Macias over here. Adrian joined our team. How long ago did you? A year ago. And one of the things that drew our staff to Adrian is we looked around, and he always had a group of men with him, meaning that he was great at not just doing the task of ministry, but developing other people, developing other relationships. And that's got to be key in our role. Because if we perform well, but we can't lead people to perform well, then there's going to be a major gap in our ministry. Does that make sense? Okay, so some of you guys that said, hey, I'm really good at delegating, give me some of your secrets. What are some of the things in delegation that you've learned that may be helpful for the group? Tim.
Coming from prior EMS field, as a training officer, I was able to delegate in accident scenes and what have you, in the first responder role, delegate tasks to other members of my crew, and in follow through, what helped me was after the call was done and the patients were taken care of or what have you, I would go back to those crew members and talk to them. Hey, what did you do good? What did you do bad? What can I do better? What did I do wrong? And just have a debrief. And that helped improve my team because it gave them confidence that I was watching out for them. And it gave me confidence that they're watching out for me. So it became a more cohesive team out in the field than if we were just all doing our own thing.
So debrief was important.
Very important.
Yep. Get on the back end. Hey, how do we operate? One of the things that we would try to do at church, whenever there's an event. So, for example, this past week there was Night to Shine. Well, that team got together. Hey, what was clear? What went well? But then also, hey, what are some opportunities for next time? What were some of the things that we missed on? So, a time of debrief to get better. Also, with our campus teams, kind of the same thing. There is a debrief of the weekend services. Hey, was anything? Did we miss anything? Did we communicate anything that maybe wasn't helpful or whatever it may be? But an opportunity to debrief, because so often in ministry we can just move on to the next thing, and we just continue to look forward without actually stopping to say, hey, what do we need to work on? So debriefing is good. What else? Those of you that do great with delegation. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a team of engineers, and they all have specific job roles. However, they have certain personality skill sets. So I have a testing engineer, and he's in charge of all the testing. However, he communicates very, very well, very articulate, very thorough. And so a lot of times I'll let him communicate with the customer and step up and take that role on so that the other team members can kind of focus on what they're doing as well. So just try to share the wealth is what I would call it. But find what people's skill sets are and, promote them and, thank them and let them know that you've seen those skill sets. Just acknowledging what you see. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's good. And recognizing if there's an area you think that you may not be good at, but somebody's better than you, giving them that opportunity. Yeah. Chris.
One thing I have learned is to allow for some flexibility and letting people figure the way out on their own. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you would do it, and it doesn't have to be perfect. One thing that I have learned is if they can do it 90% as good as I can do it, but you have a whole team doing that, you're still going to rise, the entire group up. So having some patience is key.
That's so good. And pass it back. We'll end with Hannah. And that's so true, because delegation, I promise you, it's absolutely worth the effort. There's a phrase that, Life Church, Craig Rochelle, he talks about Gitmo. I don't know if y'all have heard that before, GETMO, but it's good enough to move on. Meaning, if he uses a 95% rule, but if something's 95% done or 95% of the way you would do it, move on to the next thing, because you'll spend so much time obsessing over the final 5% to make it perfect that you lose so much time and you could get so much more done. So that's good. Yes, ma'am.
For me, I operate from a high level of trust and letting people fail. Like, I've noticed that the more I let my all-stars fail, the more that they learn. And it also allows them to find what they're good at and what they're not good at so they can grow in the areas that they're not good at. But then I now know what they are good at and make sure that they do those things more often.
That's good. Giving people a safe place to fail. Very good. Okay, got a couple more tools I want to give you guys. So we'll move on to the next thing. Cairo, this is very good. The effective delegation. Now, here's where delegation gets tricky. To delegate well, you actually have to give up authority. You actually have to give somebody the ability to make the right decision. And so you see this, think of this as like a little seesaw or teeter-totter, if you will. So authority and responsibility go hand in hand. So as the authority slide goes up, meaning I want to have more and more authority, you're actually disempowering people on your team. And on the flip side, if you give away authority, you will multiply your time, multiply your effectiveness. But what you really have to model is how do you have the right balance? Because here's what delegation is not. So I'll just use Adrian because we're on staff together. I would not be a good leader if I just say, hey, Adrian, you run East Campus however you want to. If you need me, call me. That's not delegation. That's abdication, where I'm just going to say, hey, do whatever you want, and I'm going to go over here and do my thing. A lot of times leaders think that that's the right key. Is to be a good leader, we need to let somebody do whatever they want to do, however they want to do it. That's not what it is, right? Right delegation is, hey, we're going to work together. I'm going to give you authority. I'm going to give you responsibility. I'm going to give you the power to make the decision. And in doing so, like Hannah said, I will be okay if you make mistakes, but I will be there with you to help hold you accountable, to help correct mistakes, um, and to help you grow and get better. So, does that make sense? What we're doing here? If you want to effectively delegate, you have to give away authority, and we have to be okay with that as leaders to be okay. Like, I don't have to make all the decisions. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about Amazon guy, Jeff Bezos, and whether you like him or not, he's built a really amazing company. And he says, I've got the mental capacity where I want to make 3 or 4 big decisions a day. That's all I want to do. I don't want to decide what color we're going to paint a wall somewhere. I don't want to decide what we're going to serve at this lunch meeting. Give me 3 or 4 biggest decisions that need my voice. I want to put my focus there, and I'm going to delegate all of the other responsibilities. And so oftentimes we have to think about this balance of authority and responsibility. What are the most important decisions for us to make, and then what can we pass on to other people? Which leads us to the next one, Cairo. This is, I'm throwing you all kinds of tools. We'll put them all in the portal, take pictures. I find this to be a good tool on determining what do I say yes to and what do I say no to. And so you see at the top things that are both urgent and important. So you can think of this as a matrix, if you will. Those things that are highly important and highly urgent, those are obviously the most important things we need to give our time to. But the question we have to ask is, am I being focused here? Because if I have a really big decision to make, but I'm also making 30 other decisions that probably don't make that big of a difference, my mental capacity is going to be stretched thin. And so I think that's pretty obvious. If something's highly urgent and highly important, we get it. That's the most important decision we need to make. But where we get caught up is something that's highly important but not very urgent. And this is me, this is Matt, my personality. If something is highly important but low urgent, I'll procrastinate it. And I'll say, hey, I'll get to that when I get to it. It's almost like this mentality of you put the fires out closest to the house. But what that is, that would be me being reactive. Like I'll get to it when it gets so important that I have to act. The goal is when something's highly important but low urgent is to put a plan together. Meaning, okay, I know I have this thing due on a Friday. I want to spend an hour on Monday. I want to spend 2 hours on Tuesday or whatever, and then on Thursday I want to have a draft ready for the decision on Friday. Make a plan for it. Otherwise, you're going to become reactive to it, and you're going to be living in the, hey, once this fire gets close to my house, then I'll deal with it. But we want to be proactive leaders and not reactive leaders. Does that make sense? So if something's really important, but it's not due today, can you put a plan in place so it doesn't surprise you? On the other side, if something's very urgent but not very important, we have to ask ourselves a question: do I need to spend my energy into this decision, or like something low important, low urgent, can someone else do this for me? Can someone else do this for me? So this whole idea is simply around we have a limited capacity. Where can we give our best to the most important things, and what can we pass off to somebody else? You know what this is a lot like? It's a lot like parenting. I think about my house right now. There are some things that are highly urgent, highly important, and that would be my relationships with my wife and my 2 girls. There are other things that is high important to me, but not very urgent. Like we need to replace our flooring. Like we have water damage, we have some wood flooring. It just doesn't look good, and it drives me crazy. I just got the bill for it today because I had a quote. You have no idea. You might have an idea, but I was shocked It was literally twice what I thought it was going to be, and I'm still anxious about this. Anyway, so if you know a good flooring guy, talk to Shane. Are you a good flooring guy? Okay, bro, I would hire you in a heartbeat. But all to say, it's important, but it's not very urgent. And so we have to make sure that as leaders, we're giving the right amount of time to the right things, because I think that's how we have the greatest impact. All right, one final tool, and I think this is so true. So okay, we get it. We have to multiply our leadership. Um, but we also have a limited capacity of time. Here are just a couple of different things that we can do that to kind of measure the different ways that we can invest in others. So let's start at the bottom, apprenticeship. Well, first of all, Jesus did all of these, right? So when he went up to the Mount of Transfiguration, he had his disciples with him, but he took how many people with him? He took three. He took Peter, James, and John. He had an inner circle of people he gave more access to. And so we see this all throughout Scripture where Jesus had a very small group. Now he had a large group, the 12, which he taught and did life with. We also see, was it Luke chapter 10, where he sends out the 72. There was another layer. And granted, all this is built off Scripture, you know. This was the rhythm of Jesus with his Peter, James, and John, the disciples. Luke chapter 10, we sends out the 72, and then he also has um, the multitude. So if you think about the Sermon on the Mount, right? So the smaller the group gets, the more transformational it is. But it's also what? It's more what? It's more costly. It's more time consuming. You know, the more people you give your phone number to, or you give maybe the digits to your house to get in, the more people you give that to, it can just be more time consuming. It can be more costly. It can be more dangerous actually if you give the wrong people your gate code. But how can we step into all these? Because I think that's really the goal. Is do we have a team of three? Do we have a group of three that we're really going deep with? Do we have a secondary group? Maybe it is the group of 12 that we're focusing on coaching. We want to have some level of depth and accountability, but maybe they're not the 2 a.m. type group. Do we have a larger cohort? And then, of course, we see the top one. This may be self-explanatory, but when we think of, okay, I want to be a leader that multiplies my effectiveness, I want to lead leaders, this is a good place to start, right? Now, there's not a lot of people that could get a group of 70 like that. You know, Pastor Ed can draw a big crowd. Uh, there's not a lot of us that, I have a small group on Thursday. I put it on the group finder. I was hoping I'd have a lot more people show up, to be honest with you, right? But I think that the takeaway is not a lot of us can draw a big crowd, but just by throwing something out there. And I think, one, we got to be intentional with it. But we can all find a group of 1, 2, and 3 people to invest in, which is why we're doing the huddle. We want to see how you guys do with this. So real quickly, by show of hands, how many of you say, hey, I've got the group of 3 that I'm pouring into, okay? And how many of you feel most comfortable with the group of 3? Okay. How many of you would rather have a group of 15 to 20? I think I would too, because guess what? With a group of 3, you've got to be what? You're more vulnerable. I don't like being vulnerable, right? I liked, we've talked about that before. But if we want to have transformational relational access, we have to get into a smaller group. So any questions? Any questions about this? Any comments? Ashley. Where'd that other microphone go?
It's right here. No,
Okay,
it's okay.
use this one.
I think that one of the ways that I'm wired is I like the 1 to 3 better because empathy is not my natural strength. and we discussed that I believe last week. It's something I have to be more intentional to exhibit and engage in. And so I feel that I can really effectively show empathy to three people. But when the group gets larger, 4 to 12, that's a lot of people's needs, and a lot of people, they're all probably going through something and they all require empathy, and then it kind of drains my heart a little bit, and then I have to be very intentional to refuel, because I'm not naturally like a counselor type. And so I think it's just being honest with our wiring and seeing where we are actually weaker and why we're drawn to a certain size group or not. For example, in my women's group that I'm a part of, we have about 15 people, and they all text our leader and they all tell her like everything that's going on in their lives. And that would absolutely overwhelm me because I cannot keep up with everybody's home lives and their stories. But like like Anna's one of my three, like I can tell her like everything and she can tell me everything and we can be there for each other. But beyond that, I just feel like a limited capacity to, frankly speaking, to be able to care as much or care as well. Just being honest.
So I, I'm just going to say that your lady that leads the 15, what does she need? What does the lady that leads the 15 need to do? What's that? She does need time, but what is she needs to delegate? The lady with the 15, she needs to identify 3 or 4 people in her group for her to invest in those 3 or 4 more, and then those 3 or 4 will help care for the group. That's delegation. So it is the pyramid. It is what Jethro said to Moses in Exodus. Hey, appoint for yourself leaders that can then help carry, because ultimately we want to carry for the most amount of people as we possibly can. We want to bring the most amount of people as we can to Jesus. That's not going to come from us having, unless we're Ed Newton and we have the ability to communicate like he does. For the most of us, it's going to become, can we delegate spiritual authority to a few, who then can delegate to more and more and more? That's how we do it. So delegation is a very biblical spiritual principle, and it really is one of the best indicators on how effective we'll be in ministry. So, Tim. It's not. Yeah, very true. As leaders, we don't have to make every decision. We just have to make sure that we make the right decisions. So, as we go through this MTI curriculum, this term is about leadership. We talked about leading self a lot last term. This is about how do we lead a team, how do we lead an organization. Pastor Ed and Safety will be here to talk about the communication code, which is so effective. And then after that, we're going to talk about how can we be leaders in the community? How can we have an impact on people outside of our circle? And then that's will end this next term. So that's hopefully you're picking up on all the themes of leading self, leading our family, leading our team, leading others, leading organizations, because we want to see your leadership grow. So I'm going to pray for us. I know it's about that time. We got to start the 7 o'clock class. Your homework is going to be 9 through 12. It's going to be about your prayer life, leaders being readers, all good stuff. So let me pray for us, and we'll let you guys get out of here. God, we love you. Thank you for this group of servants. Help us reflect the way that you led, and God, give us the right heart to make much of you, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, you guys are dismissed. We'll see you next week.